Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another Star Wars Rebels video roundtable. We're talking about Season 3, Episode 18, titled Double Agent Droid. This episode aired originally on March the 11th of 2017 and was written by Brent Friedman. As we build up to the end of the Season 3, it's time to take a little breather and have a lighthearted episode of Rebels. In this episode, Dave Filoni is worried that people will call it a filler episode, but we promise that we'll talk about it long enough to make it special. And speaking of we, welcome to our recording live. Oh, I said that all wrong. We're live. And speaking of we, welcome. We are recording live. No edits. Live from Studios B3. I am Spencer Brinkerhoff III. And with me today to talk Double Agent Droid, our first guest is James Floyd. James is writing for StarWars.com as well as ClubJade.net. And he just finished Star Wars Every Day. Where Star Wars Every Day? James, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Spencer. Glad to be here. Love Rebels, and I'm excited about this episode.
I am too. We're going to be excited about it because we found lots of things to pick apart. Our next guest is Clare. I almost said Care. Clare. Now tell me how to say your last name correctly. It's Stribling. Oh, did we lose you? Everything froze up.
Uh-oh. Wait. Yep. Claire's frozen in carbonite.
I'm here. Yes. There's James. James, you're still live. And Clare. Let's just go to Clare's picture for a second. So this is Clare. She looks very happy. You know, her profile image there is her with a Han Solo gun. We'll keep on talking about her. And I also, maybe we should wait for her to come back to get this. But Claire's a former Yellow Ranger, Power Ranger, working with Zardon, and it died. So there it is. Technical difficulties abound when you're podcasting live. So what we'll do for a second is we'll talk a little bit to James about Star Wars and, James, how you came into Star Wars. So tell us who you are and what got you going in this thing.
Who am I? I'm a man of many mysteries.
I'm gonna dial Clare in while you're talking.
Okay, so I don't know. I guess I've been in Star Wars for a long time. You might know me on the internet as Jawa James or on Twitter as @JamesJawa. I've been involved in Star Wars fandom for easily more than almost 20 years. That even I'm back on the days of like rec.arts.sf.sci-fi. Whatever, Star Wars.misc.
Wait, I don't know what that was. What was that?
The Usenet groups back in the late 90s. There was a Star Wars Usenet group that got all kinds of crazy stuff that people would collect and trade. People would have the crazy theories that this was like just the beginning of speculation on the internet of like we didn't even know that the prequels were coming yet.
Right.
So we had all these crazy ideas and just a lot of fun and trying to figure stuff out.
That's awesome.
Well, look at wait. Claire is back and she's got like more than 2 hands. It's weird. I don't know what's going on.
Let's switch over to Claire. Where are you? Hi, Claire.
Oh my gosh, she grew a second head.
Oh my goodness. Who's that long-haired hippie? Is that a lumberjack?
That long that surprisingly is not a lumberjack. That is Tyler Westhouse, who has decided to eat my food.
That's rude.
What?
Call me a lumberjack.
Yeah, he did call you.
I'm leaving.
Good. I didn't want you here anyway.
Well, I was gonna say
That's
worst
right.
podcast ever.
Yeah, he's getting out of here. Don't worry. I know none of us want him here.
This is working perfectly, just as we hoped.
Awesome.
I've got a couple more adjustments to make here slightly since we moved things around, but everything is good. Claire, welcome to the show. I wanted to make sure I was saying your last name correctly. You are Clare Stribling.
Yes, that's me.
Yes.
Hi.
Former
Hey,
Yellow Ranger, right?
Yes.
You're not going to be standing in line to see this movie at midnight. You're not going to see it multiple times. That's what we were chatting about, right? You're not a Power Ranger fan at all?
No, I'm definitely never seeing it at all.
Okay.
Not wearing my Yellow Ranger t-shirt and my Yellow Ranger morphing belt buckle either.
Excellent.
When I go or
Excellent.
not go. Not though, because of Potsdam, the Axe Yellow Ranger, so can't have any of that.
Claire's frozen again.
Claire's frozen again. I think that you're going to make it back. Oh, you're good. You're good. So here is a
I'm moving.
quick. You're
All right,
moving.
using that Yellow Ranger morphin ability.
That's
So
right.
a quick recap of our show that we just watched. Now, apparently, you really need to get those access codes for your season finale attack on Lothal. And the best team to put together would be a rookie Imperial pilot, a grumpy out-of-date astro-mech, and a cast-off old inventory droid. That's right. Wedge, Chopper, and AP5 are off on a secret mission, but Chop gets possessed by the Imperials, and AP5 finally gets a moment to himself where he can reenact a musical scene from Snow White. This is Star Wars Rebels. James, first impressions of Star Wars Rebels. What is it called? Droid.
Double Agent Dread.
Double Agent
Double
Dread.
Agent Droid.
Droids in distress.
Yeah, Judge Dredd in your bed. No, I thought it was a fun episode. It definitely, I was not expecting that musical interlude there at the end. I really loved seeing AP5 and Chopper together, and I thought it was interesting throwing Wedge into the mix as opposed to someone like Ezra or Zeb who's used to these droids and their crazy shenanigans. Instead, Wedge is just like, what the heck? I don't even want to get involved with you two.
Right.
And then, of course, Wedge tries to even hide in the bathroom, but AP5 is like, I have no personal space issues. I'm just going to follow you in there.
I'm sorry, that was not a bathroom. It was a refresher.
Yeah, we've been trying to refresh what's going on here on the screen for a while.
And Claire, James brought up the musical interlude there. What did you think about sort of our musical nods in this episode? Anything you can do, I can do better. Right?
I say that I never expected to hear that song in the Star Wars universe. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I was a little surprised though that the one person who didn't see this episode was Josh Gad, considering he's a Broadway guy.
Yeah.
Because for those who didn't know, he was in the original cast of the Book of Mormon, which is, of course, off the scene.
Right. I'm gonna repeat that. You're chopping up a little bit, but I was gonna say that I believe what you just said is that you were happy to hear Josh Gad was in this episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, say that again.
I was happy to hear that Josh Gad was in it, but I was surprised that he was not the one singing. I will say that.
Right. There you go. So Josh Gad, you mentioned he was probably best known in his breakout role, which was
Olaf the Snowman from Frozen.
Olaf, I think, was his breakout role. But didn't you also say that he was in Book of Mormon the musical, right?
And he was awesome. He was Elder Cunningham, so of course he was being funny, which he, is so easy for him naturally, and singing as well.
And this weekend we can see Josh Gad once again in Beauty and the Beast as Olaf. I'm sorry, not Olaf. LeFou.
So close.
LeFou.
And if you haven't seen that clip, go watch it. He's awesome. He's
awesome.
So good.
Excellent.
I'm excited for Beauty and the Beast because I just want to see crazy old Maurice raving in live action.
Yes.
Just so we can have a gif of that.
Yes, the best. The best. Now, I mentioned at the onset of this one, and it was interesting that Dave Filoni also brought it up when he was talking in Rebels Recon, that he said a lot of fans would call this a filler episode. And I think that sometimes we'll see an episode that's not part of sort of like this overarching storyline, and we have the droids that are the main characters, and people just sort of sit back and they say, blah, Now, James, you'd already said that you really were excited about this episode and you enjoyed that, but Claire, what do you think about Dave Filoni saying that this one that he was afraid that people were going to call this a filler episode? Did you get that vibe at all? Are you still there, Claire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still here, if you can hear me. Yeah, I definitely got that vibe a little bit, but I think that there's a way that it could be turned into, more of the overarching storyline, especially if, they had the potential to take a lot of information out of Chopper. I don't know what they got, even after, the whole explosion, which I was fascinated by. I don't know how they did that.
Right.
Way to go, Hera. Good job.
But I guess that anything that they may have uploaded in that data spike was all lost because
Mhm.
maybe it didn't transfer
could
anyplace
be.
else. It could be.
We need
We know that in Rogue One they transferred a lot of data to Admiral Radiss's ship, but somehow the plans still got off of there.
Right. Right. That's true.
could happen.
That's true.
Ah.
So let's talk a little bit about, we had mentioned sort of like the main characters in here. So let's first talk about Wedge Antilles. So Wedge, we know from the original Star Wars A New Hope. He was there. He was in all of them, right? He made it through all of the
Yes.
battles, right? So,
Yeah.
so James, were you excited to see sort of like some more information about Wedge and his background? Or I mean, what did you think about Wedge and his character sort of, I don't know that there was a lot of development here, but Wedge in Rebels, what do you think?
I'm a fan of Wedge and Rebels. That it is kind of interesting in that he goes through all the movies, and he's there, but we don't really know a whole lot about his character. We learn a little bit more here in Rebels when he defects from Sky Strike Academy, and then now he's working for the Phoenix Squadron, and here we have him just going on what is to be a normal rebel mission. We gotta steal some imperial codes, so we gotta get a pilot to sneak the droids in, and
Right.
so this is just kind of a regular mission, and then he's been put on it, and then he realizes that why he's been put on it and no one else, because nobody else wants to be with this dynamic duo.
Right. Nobody else can handle them. Well, and that's something else that's interesting is even though, we talked about this, that a lot of times these episodes that are sort of like out of, the normal sort of stream, this one still had important points to it. I mean, they were there to steal the codes to Lothal. And apparently, they need the codes to get back into Lothal. Claire, are you there? You got any ideas on, what's going on with Lothal and these codes that they've got?
Well, I think that Thrawn, my favorite. I love Thrawn.
Sounds a little shaky there. I'm not hearing anything. James, let's talk a little.
Oh.
Oh no, you're back.
Oh no! Am I back?
Yeah, you are back.
Apparently, you have to stay in motion to stay connected.
I'll just like spin and keep talking. So, Rebels, right?
Oh yeah, we're talking about Rebels. Right now you're in outer space battle, so you're flying around. It's looking great.
Exactly.
I was gonna say she's
yeah.
like an AP5 at the end here. She's just floating in space.
Happy and in motion.
Blissfully.
So
Oh, yeah.
so then the question here is that even though, this episode had that vibe that, it was the droids, it was a little bit off, it was out of sort of like the sequence of other things going on. At the same time, the point of the episode was to get them to steal these plans. And these are the plans to what? The codes for Lothal. So what exactly does that mean, codes for Lothal? Any ideas on that?
Well, first off, the Empire is still occupying Lothal. Last I checked, and they've completely overrun that place, from what I can tell. Especially with that episode, I can't remember the name of it, with the droid, with the factory.
Right.
And
was that Siege on Lothal? Maybe.
I think so. That sounds right. But yeah, I mean, if we know these rebels at all, that they're itching to go back to Lothal. They're gonna get there at some point. And
Why
it'd
does
be easy
everybody want to
picking.
go back to Lothal?
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. I have no idea.
Well, okay.
But Thrawn knows.
Yes. So that's the thing.
I bet he's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so maybe, James, that's a really fun question, is why go back to Lothal? So number one, they have a factory there. Number two, they've got, the old Jedi temple was there, where Ezra got his kyber crystal. So, I mean, there is some connections there. And if nothing else, it's home. And these rebels, what are they doing if not defending and protecting their homes? So I imagine that's what it is. Oh, we're all leading up to this, right? So
Right.
Another thought that I had about this episode is that sometimes musically, thematically, we need to take a slight breather. We're building up, we're getting a lot of the action going on. And as we're getting ready for this next episode, we have Maul dueling, maybe, supposedly. Maul is going to confront Obi-Wan on Tatooine. And as a result, let's take a little bit of a breather, pause, get into action, and then our 2-part finale for the season. So no, I think that sort of like musically and sort of like thematically, this one was a wonderful episode to take a break, recalibrate, and get ready for the rest of the show. So let's see, other sort of first impressions with the show. James, what other thoughts did you have or you want to share from this one?
I was really intrigued by Josh Gad's character, being on the Imperial listening ship, and he's like, "Oh no, let's not tell the ISB that their own base here is getting hacked right away. Let's get what we're going on." And it just shows kind of the ruthlessness within the Empire, that everybody's gunning for each other, that there's no trust, that it's an empire based on stabbing each other in the back,
right?
Or at least looking to step on other people to climb up.
Yeah.
And then so he's in charge of his little ship, and he's kind of got like his own little hacker cell there, that they're doing stuff, and they're like able to have the information at their fingertips, but also in their heads, and
right.
the ability, he's able to come up with some probabilities like he's a K2SO, and
right.
so that's just kind of a little creepy that they're just they're human, but they're a little bit off, and they're trying to do their own thing, and maybe expand their piece of the Empire, that is like, yes, we can get more people on our side and not in the ISB. And
well, and you've come to one of the first points that I thought was super interesting about this episode, and that's the sort of like the question or the comment about identity. So first, we'll start with this listening ship and their identity, and let's talk a little bit about SIBO and about Lobot and what it means to be jacked into the Imperial listening ship. So Claire, did you get a chance to maybe go back and look at Lobot or think about Lobot, or maybe you're always thinking about Lobot?
I'm always thinking about Lobot.
And what does it mean?
If I cover my hair like this,
James, you've got your headphones on. You're good.
There we go. There we go.
So I mean,
I've been wanting to shave my head and do the full Lobot, but my wife is like, no, it might not grow back, and that just could be the end.
So Claire, let's talk about identity. Let's talk about what it means to be part of sort of like the Empire or the Imperial, and what it means sort of like, what did we learn from SIBO and his experience in trying to protect Ezra and the Bridger family? And then did you make any connections with, what's going on with this Imperial listening ship? What do you think?
Yeah. I definitely think I love Lobot, and I think that process is so cool, but I definitely think it takes a bit of who you are, your own personal identity, and the Empire doesn't care. They don't care about individuals. They care about their overarching goals and keeping people in line. I'm not sure if that was the Empire who did that to the Pablo Hidalgo-looking Josh Gad
Exactly.
character.
Yes.
That's what I thought the whole time. That it's our Lord of the Canon who knows everything, or of course that person would be the Lobot character. He's just got the database attached to his head.
Right.
Which is what I just kept thinking through the whole episode.
I never made that connection of there's somebody at Lucasfilm that is
more
hooked in there.
Right.
He is very hooked in.
Poor Pablo.
Well, I say that with love, of course.
Right. And so I think that there are levels to sort of like that jacked in, the amount that they're actually plugged in. And we saw that the controller, which was Josh Gad's character that was modeled to be like Pablo, that character was sort of like the main guy. But then there were the other sort of like subordinates in there. There was one man and then one woman, and you guys got to help me out. That female character's voice sounded like a computer program thing. Did you recognize that? Claire, you're nodding your head a little bit. Did you recognize that voice?
It sounded like Hera was computerized a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it sounded like to me.
Mrs. Jawa also made the same thing, that it sounded like Hera's voice.
Right.
But as a more computerized version. So good catch.
Nice. Well, now something else here is I wanted to make a comparison between the situation that the Imperial listening crew was in and the situation that Chopper ended up being in. And let's talk about the droids. One of the problems that we have with the droids in Star Wars is that a lot of times they don't get. I see that,
What?
Ponda Baba. A lot of times, like Ponda Baba, they just don't get their respect. The droids are sort of like, I think that AP5 makes the comment in this episode that was one of the problems with the Imperials is that they don't ever sort of like think that a droid could be doing this. And as a result, Chopper has been very successful this whole time. So James, do you see that maybe the droids are having an advantage because the Imperials are overlooking them in the same way that maybe these Imperial sort of like spy ship guys are sort of like plugged in and maybe they're not getting their credit? I don't know what I'm saying here, but
well, I don't know. I think you got a couple different things to unpack. I think one is the rebellion using droids because the Empire doesn't really even think about droids as people, and so it doesn't consider the droids might be infiltrators. And
right.
Certainly us here on Earth, we've seen like all kinds of sci-fi things. Like, of course, the robots are listening to you, but it goes to this mentality.
And the microwaves,
that,
I think, are also listening.
Yeah,
but
and apparently, according to the CIA, our Samsung TVs are listening to us.
Thanks, Samsung.
Brought to you by Samsung. But it goes to just saying that the Empire's mentality of they kind of have this blind allegiance that the way the stormtroopers even they can't see anything but forward, that they can't really they've enslaved these droids essentially to serve them, but they don't ever consider the droids as people or whether they have their own free will. And here we have Chopper and AP5, trying to figure out which of them is the best. That's a very kind of human characteristic,
right,
to compete.
Yeah.
And then we see, how does Chopper change when he gets taken over? He's a blank slate, and he becomes very servile. That he's super polite and wanting to do things that are nice, and it's because his controller is like, I don't know how to be what Chopper was before because I don't know what he was before. So I will try and make him as helpful as possible just to smooth things along. But then that is the warning sign that, hey,
he's not himself.
Because the Empire wants the droids to be servants and not have any personality. Whereas in the Rebellion, it's like droids are people too. And so I think that's a big dichotomy of who the rebels are, that they are about freedom and free to be who you are. And the Empire, it's like, no, you conform to fit into a larger, vast machine. And we see the Imperial listening ship, going back to your original question. They're also trying to be part of a larger machine and, do the best they can to serve the Empire without really, fitting into what they want to be on their own.
Right.
Except for that they want to be better than, they want to make themselves look good for Thrawn.
Right. And now you brought up something else that was really interesting then there that I wanted to talk about is the idea of personality and droids that have personality. And what makes Chopper is that personality. And we see that with R2 as well. And I believe that R2 is the way that he is because he hasn't had all of these memory wipes. And Hera mentioned in this one that Chopper does get routine sort of like memory wipes, but that's just a security thing. Now, Claire,
it sounded to me that his routine memory wipes weren't a total memory wipe. It was
right,
just like,
right. It was
hey,
just that hyperdrive.
Key information, just going to throw that out.
Exactly. So Claire, let's talk about personality of droids. And there was an interesting exchange where AP5 actually met another one of those Imperial. Is he a protocol droid? I forget some
inventory.
Sort of inventory.
Yeah.
My brother and I had the action figure. We called him the throw up droid. I don't know why. Just that mouth with the throw up. I mean, he was the Death Star droid. But yeah, so Claire, what do you think about droids and their personality and how it is that maybe the Imperials and their droids are different? I don't know what I'm saying. So that the personality of the droids are another big issue here.
Right. I mean, part of it's definitely, I think, in the programming and like you said, with wiping memories and stuff like that. But I also think that a really big part of like the droid personalities is who are these droids working with.
Oh, right.
All of the Imperial ones are so boring, and AP5, when we first meet him in that episode where, Chopper and AP5 become best friends, after they meet each other and AP5 spends his time on all the rebel bases, that's when you start to see his personality. Yeah, he's Eeyore. He's like a type A, super organized Eeyore, but he has a personality that the other droid of his same model that they meet doesn't have.
Right. And that was a really interesting exchange too, because did it feel like that was the first time that AP5 actually lied?
It kind of did. It definitely did. To protect his friends, to protect Chopper, even though they're like the cutest odd couple that that there could possibly be. Even though they are at odds all the time.
Right.
I mean, AP5 never had that kind of interaction with the Empire. It was all so cold and so unfeeling, and of course he would protect his buddy and his new
because it's his friend, and that's what he didn't have in the Empire was any friends. He had coworkers.
Oh my gosh, you know what? You just made the connection for me. AP5 is the droid version of Agent Callus.
Oh.
Whoa.
He didn't have any friends in the Empire. He was all alone, knew that he was going to be cast out, and in the end, he ends up joining the rebellion because he could see that there was something beyond the Empire's control.
Whoa. Wow.
You heard
now
it here first.
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm kind of now interested to have Callus and AP5 get together and just compare notes and just like realize
I would love that.
that they are now rebels because rebels are family.
Right.
That
Exactly.
it's doing what's right and letting them be individuals and having people who have your back.
Right. Now, something else that I thought about in that scene where AP5 is confronted by the other droid, I wrote down a note. I think it's PC7, and that was, I believe, voiced by Vanessa Marshall as well, is what happens there is when he lies to that droid, I thought, what about the 3 rules of robotics? He's not supposed to lie. He's not supposed to harm, a human. And then what was the other one? Must obey orders given by humans. So these droids do not follow Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics at all.
Yeah.
It's different, completely different.
Yeah. And I think that even in the original films, we see 3PO lying or stretching the truth a bit to hide what he's really on about.
Right.
So they are way more human than I think the Asimovian controls would allow. That they're they have personality, and certainly the longer that they've been on without memory wipes or factory resets, that they develop their quirks and their personality. And it's interesting to see AP5 with, was it PC7?
Yes.
And just that he realizes that he is her, but at the same time that he's not her, that he's better than her because he's free. That he completely makes a complete lie to her, and she's just like, oh, okay.
Oh, that's right. I guess I'll leave now.
Questioning it because A, why would another Imperial droid lie to me? But B, it's just so far out of their realm that I just do what I'm told and not think.
And Claire, did you have something to add to that?
Thanks.
Oh, I totally agree. I was a little shocked at first that she was like, oh, okay, I'm going to go to the cargo bay. I was like, oh, what?
Yeah, I was expecting her to say something snide back because it turns out all these inventory droids are all like AP5 and jerks.
Right.
But
expecting a little more sass out of her.
Well, and I
that's
think
what we need her spin-off adventures.
Yes.
Oh, man.
We've got a couple of sassy girls here at my house, my daughters, and we call them Sasquatches. So, yeah, they can get a little monstrous. So I was expecting a little bit more sass as well. Now, in this conversation about personality leads us to the next sort of like sequence in this show where the controller actually hijacks Chopper and he steals his personality. And this is a scene that could really turn into a horror film, right? So the person that you know is not the person that you know anymore. The person is gone. They are a hollow shell. They're being controlled, by some outside force doing something against their will. And I mean, it could have been a little bit scary there. I mean, James, did you get that vibe at all, or do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it definitely could reach that, and I see when Chopper gets back aboard the Ghost and he opens the airlock on them, and it's like, how much of Chopper is in there aware that he's being taken over versus is the Chopper personality just completely gone at the moment, and it's just
Right.
whatever the controller is doing, moving his little joystick around. But yeah, it's like, the person that you trust as a friend is not who you think they are, and I think that's one of the things
Right.
that you think that in Star Wars they would recognize with droids is that not only are they somewhat interchangeable, but they can be easily reprogrammed and wiped, and the person that you've had by your side through all these battles and stuff could be an infiltrator and not even know it, and it's up to you to make sure that your buddies really are your buddies still.
Right. And you use the word joystick, and that made me think of Pablo Hidalgo and Matt Martin, who were on set for Rogue One controlling Chopper in those sequences. And I thought, oh, wait, they're now the controller, and Chopper's lost his identity. So,
Oh my goodness.
another thought.
This is so meta now.
I know. Well, here, I'm going to go a little bit further. Claire, are you familiar with Battlestar Galactica? Did you watch that series at all?
A little bit. I gotta say, I'm not as familiar with it as I would like to be, though.
Okay. Well, spoilers for anyone out there who may or may not. Claire, James, are you not gonna listen?
It'll be okay.
So-
I'll listen. I promise.
So in the new version, thank you for listening as we're talking. In this new version of Battlestar Galactica, what happens is they're looking for these Cylons, and they find out there are these, I believe, 6 master models of the Cylons, and they find out that some of the people that they've
5.
known, they're 5. Okay, some of the people that they've known the whole time are actually Cylons, right? So here they are, the final 5. And what happens is, I was having this sort of like moment as I'm thinking about poor Chopper. Here he is asleep inside of his own life, watching and worrying and fretting. And he finds out, wait, this was me the whole time. I was the bad guy. It was me that did all of this. And it got really kind of dark.
Oh my god.
Well, more importantly for Chopper, he's like, wait, I was the bad guy, but I wasn't doing it just so I could be a jerk. It's because I was actually, doing the Empire's thing. It's like, I'm supposed to be the bad guy because I am just, the homicidal maniac aboard the ship.
Right. I'm
That's
glad.
the only way they got away with it, is just because he's such a jerk all the time. Like, oh, he's actually not giving me a hard time.
Right.
This is fine for now. I can deal with it.
I thought
Makes
that
my
was
flight
pretty
back
awesome.
so much better.
Yeah. So, Chopper trying to open up the airlock on us. That's Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and another thought I had is Stephen Stanton came back in this episode as the voice of AP5. And one of the last sort of like big characters that he played was, check my notes, Colonel Gascon. Do you guys remember the episode from
Gascon?
Yeah, from the Clone Wars, and he was assigned to be in command of D Squad. Well,
also written by Brent Friedman.
Oh, really? Hey, look at that. Now something else kind of crazy happened in that one. At the very beginning, they took the droid M5BZ and they ripped out his memory banks so that Gascon could get inside of him and control that astro-mech to drive around. Again, controller inside of the astro-mech.
Wow, and then the astromech is controlling inside the machine. And,
Yes.
and then we have the Matrix. And I don't know. I can't go further with that.
Oh my goodness.
So
I'm sensing a theme here.
yeah, and that's the thing, is that with this episode, as I was looking at it, I was really starting to sense that there could have been a lot more to it. But in the end, this was an episode that was just a little bit of a tangent, an offshoot, sort of like to cleanse the palate to get ready for the next episode. It's not a wasted episode at all. There's a lot of meat in here and a lot of really good stuff. So I pointed out a little bit about the stuff about Chopper and him being taken over and stuff. Claire, I wanted to ask you if there were some other impressions that you had about maybe the Pablo character or seeing this listening ship. You know, what else really stood out to you in this episode?
A few things that stood out. I like that that they addressed that this season, the episodes with like Wedge and the droids have been, as you know, as Dave Filoni would say, those filler episodes. I think Zeb said they're sending AP5, Chopper, and Wedge. That's our best. I was like, oh, come on. I love that it was definitely like a little bit of a breath of fresh air, a little comedic relief before the storm. Love the little Hitchhikers references. It seemed like
right,
he's very Hitchhikers guy.
Yeah. Wait a second, were the Hitchhiker references? I think I missed that one.
AP5 being Marvin the paranoid android.
Oh, right, okay.
That's just what it was. Which was really great. I loved the idea of just having those ships full of plugged in people who are, you know, hackers in a sense like that, able to find that kind of information. One thing that did really stand out to me that I wasn't quite so sure how I felt about was after Hera discovers that Chopper is being hacked into, what in the world did she do to them?
Yeah, she had a total don't mess with Wendy Testaberger vibe there.
Oh,
yeah.
She had a mama bear moment, and I
right.
love whenever she gets protective like that. You do not mess with Chopper.
Right.
You do not mess with Sabine until she needs tough love in that Dark Saber episode. And it was so great to watch. I just love any moment where Hera gets to be mama bear and just really let it fly. I love that.
Well,
and she's just like, I'm going to just send your message right back to you and hit the blow button.
Well, and that was the thing
I don't know
is
what
that
it was, but I like it.
I love that she also, when she got ticked off, you know what she does? She calls him Sleemo.
Yes.
She calls him Sleemo, and I think I wrote a note on this one. When the signal boost went back to the listening ship, it compromised the fuel cells. By overloading the circuits, it compromised the fuel cells, and then that's what blew the memory core, and that caused the whole big explosion because they're all sort of like tied in together. And you guys talked about sort of like some other like references or homages. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Borg. Did you guys think that maybe that there might have been a little bit of that idea that these guys being plugged into one sort of like hive mind or this memory sort of like system, that in that way they were somewhat similar to being Borg? They're voluntarily adding technology to themselves to better themselves as a listening device.
And they're working kind of as a collective that you know, I think one of them talks about something and the other person just kind of already answers it without letting the person even finish because they're already sharing all the information back and forth between their brains, and it's just them enunciating to make the decisions. No, that's a really good connection. Obviously, you know, the word Borg comes from our notion of cyborg, which is, you know, man machine connection. So, you know, seeing that, but thinking about it in that way, at first I thought the way that Hera sent the attack back to him was like the Cylon invasion, that they used the computer systems against the Colonials, their own network stuff. And it's just like, hey, we're just going to overload it, blow up your thing. And that's why you should never hook up your toaster to the internet, because it might kill you.
Toaster. But, that's also a
Cylon
slang.
Yeah. See,
it all connects.
It does. Well, I didn't quite realize the Borg connection until the controller says, well, the resistance to reprogramming is admirable, but ultimately futile. He said resistance is futile.
Thanks, Spencer. You are on the ball.
He totally said it. Wow. I mean, it was right there. I thought that was awesome. Now, Claire, you're the one that brought up that it was Josh Gad in the voice of the controller. I don't know that because this part was a little bit more monotone, did you feel like he was Josh Gadding, you know, or was he just the character?
I definitely think that Josh Gad, he's so prone to playing character bits. You're so used to his loud, obnoxious Olaf the Snow. He's not, I mean, hilarious. But
Right.
it was very, very cool to see him be this kind of character. I almost didn't recognize that it was him at all, which I thought was
Yeah.
awesome. I thought it was
Yeah.
great. There were like a few words that I was like, oh, there it is, there it is. But yeah, I definitely think that this was Josh Gad playing something new, which was really exciting. Although I think I said this before, I don't know if it was caught on. It was when I was cutting in and out earlier. He was the one person who didn't sing. That surprised me.
Oh, right. Right.
Yeah. Of all the people
So
who
here he is.
had
He's
their
the,
musical numbers.
right. He's in the Book of Mormon musical, and then he was in Frozen the musical, and now he's Beauty and the Beast. And we're not gonna. Let's get Josh Gad, and let's not
But
let
he's
him
not.
sing.
Right.
He could come back and sing later.
Right.
That if he really is a Borg, they might just have him regenerate on another listening ship somewhere. That would be just
There
creepy.
we go. Like a
If-
cruise
Yeah.
ship with a musical number. That'd be good.
Well, I was just thinking that now, just flipping to another thing that on Agents of Shield, how Patton Oswalt is inside every single Shield base
Right.
as a different person. What if the Empire had a way that we used cloning technology. We found our best listening controller group, and we just secretly clone them because they're really good at their job.
And how
and
often
it's
have
gonna
we
be
asked
the
for
class-
clones of Pablo? We've totally been asking for clones of Pablo
We
forever.
We never needed one. We never needed one, though. We had the one and only.
Oh, right.
I'm sure he wants a clone then, just so
Right.
that he can spend time.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
he's.
to run his Twitter feed or something. Yeah.
I think Pablo's
Yeah.
on a Disney cruise ship right now, anyway. So I mean, he's fine.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
Well, I thought that this episode, for well, I'm sorry, I missed that, James. What was that?
That was just me waving hi to Pablo.
Oh
You're on
yeah,
a boat.
from the cruise. I thought that this episode, in its entirety, it was really fun. There was lots of good elements to it. There was some things that we can really sort of like talk about and get deep about it. But at the same time, you didn't have to. You could just enjoy it. Chopper grabs pistols and flies out there and starts shooting at AP5. I mean,
K2 would be so proud.
We haven't seen Chopper go a full crazy charge in with a weapon since
Right.
he
Yeah.
went after as Morrigan at Pondo.
right.
Which we all wanted, of course.
And something else that flashed to me in that entire sequence there is when AP5 was like with his Magno boots or whatever, when he was walking up the hull, he totally does David Bowie in The Labyrinth. He does the Jareth move where he comes up from the stairs and goes, whoa, and just like curves right. And I was like, okay.
Oh my gosh, I have to rewatch it now.
I just was thinking that whole scene now reminded me of First Contact, since we were talking about the Borg.
Right,
that, fighting on the hull, there's the magnetized boots. Then finally somebody gets hit and knocked off, and they just fly off to sing with the whatever those little space birds are.
Oh, what were they?
I want to know what the space birds are.
I want one, though.
I wrote it down. There's something bees. Ray bees? No, it's not ray bees. Ray bays. Oops, hold on. I'll find it. It's in my
Ray is
notes.
bae.
But what happens is we had an episode where those giant things were flying around in the Clone Wars episode, and those were just the baby versions of them. Let me see. I've got my notes here. Called Slimo. Scooped up by Ghost. Knee brace.
Knee brace.
brace.
Baby knee brace. Yeah.
Is that because they only go up to your knee?
Yes.
Ray?
Yes. Like they're cute as a bee's knees.
Oh, wow.
Now, the whole idea of being like swept away into space and just floating off into oblivion, and that being your happy place.
If your happy place is being away from other people, that if hell is other people to you, then being in the emptiness of space, talking to yourself,
Right.
might just be what you need.
Right.
To be fair, he is harassed by Chopper all day, so
Yes, that's
it's a nice,
true.
quiet
Yeah,
break.
yeah. Any place without Chopper is paradise.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, let's see. We're closing in on. I think that we've covered a lot of the notes that I had written down. Let's see. They don't believe that AP5 all of his suspicions and the rebel are as bad as the Empire in ignoring the droids. When are we going to see the robot uprising? Yeah, I forgot that note. So I think that the droids get a bad rap, and the rebels can be as guilty as some of the Imperials as far as neglecting their droids. Even wild man old Ben Kenobi, looks at R2 and says, "I don't seem to recall ever owning a droid," which was true, but
technically correct.
But I mean, you had to have recognized him. I mean, I could tell you what my first car looked like, right? And there's a million Pontiac T1000s out there.
We also know that Obi-Wan is just sadly full of crap all the time. That he's not going to give away the game. So I don't know if he's a good marker for this conversation. But yeah, there's a lot of the rebels that the droids are furniture to them versus being people. But I think it's when you have very special cases like the droids that we know best, that the Chopper, R2, 3PO, BB-8, ones that have personality and are given the freedom to be individuals and to be team members and not just serving, then you build that connection that they are people, or at least that like the way that when they introduced Chopper and they said if R2 is the family dog, Chopper is the cat that just doesn't care, that it will just get in your way and go meow, swat stuff.
Cats think they're too good for me.
Yeah, well, they are.
I know, that's the problem.
That's the problem. You don't own them.
Yeah. So
same with Chopper.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. That Hera knows, just let Chopper do his thing, and so don't mess with Chopper. If you mess with Chopper, that bad stuff's gonna happen to you.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, with that, Claire, you've got another thought there?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that one thing I was very surprised by is that nobody listened to AP5 when he was like, Chopper is acting weird. There is something up. We need to do something about this. Like, he's fine. It's fine. Nothing's going on. I don't know if it was because he has a little less personality than Chopper, or if just that he was formerly Imperial, that there's that kind of stigma against him. I don't know. But
and I think
it took a while.
I think that they set that up a little bit by having the competition there, and because AP5 was trying to be the one that's leading the mission, and he was the one that sort of like is taking charge, they saw it as sort of like a jealousy, which is, again, human emotions, personality, all of that stuff is pretty interesting, that they sort of like just cast that aside and just went, oh, that's just AP5 being jealous. Wait a second, he just passed some sort of like test. He's Blade Runner test, right?
Yeah.
We went another way. Lots of fun references in this episode. So with that, Claire, do you have some final thoughts that you wanted to share with us about this episode? Anything that we might have missed?
Let's see here. I really enjoyed it. I liked the little quips, little jabs at rebels that they did themselves, like with Zeb making fun of it. I love watching Zeb smile as he gets to zap Chopper.
Right.
That was his smile. Just it's like, yeah, it's about time, man. You get your shot in while you can.
I've been waiting to do that for a long time.
Yeah, seriously.
I bet. Like that's what he dreams of every night.
Right.
Just a chance to give Chopper what he deserves.
That makes me think of Space Waffles. There. That whole scene where Chopper is waking up Zeb and he's zapping him and running around and ruining the Space Waffles. Oh, I love that. I love that episode.
Man, I forgot about that episode.
Now, two things that jumped out at me. One was when they have the cargo door open and they're all going to get sucked out into space, and so they close the door, and then 2 seconds later AP5 is walking on the hall. That means they open the door again, didn't they?
Somehow,
because they can't get out, so they just
right.
all held on and held their breath for and pushed them out real fast, so
there's got to be another sort of like a dual door that they could get him out of, or something.
There was some
airlock
the actual
kind of.
Yeah.
a regular airlock that.
That's
But
the way it worked on the Firefly ship from the TV show Firefly. So
That's
yeah,
true.
I'm
That's
sure
true.
that they've got
Yeah.
it figured out.
Okay, that makes sense. The other thing was the data spike that
right.
I first learned about spikes playing the KOTOR video game back in
Yeah,
the day, and I'm
yeah,
sure
totally.
they come back even before that. But to see one and then have it keep being animated as it's doing activity, it's popping apart, it's twisting, popping in,
Yep.
and it's like it's counting down, but you never know like what little part of it's going to move next to know that it's done or whatnot.
Right. And when I
was
saw
just
that,
really cool that they put that in that way.
yeah. And when I saw that and I thought about KOTOR, my first thought was, oh, geez, it took so long to hack those computers with the spike in KOTOR. I was like, that's right. It's not just a device. It takes a while. I remember playing it. So, it was.
That's why I'm
pretty
friends
awesome.
with Tyler, because he loves that game, and I just pass my laptop off. Like, you go, buddy.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Meat
This
bag.
will be you. I need to get a soda or something.
That's
He's
awesome.
your MVP for you.
And
yeah.
James, did you have some other sort of like closing thoughts there?
Closing thoughts. I don't know. I love Droid episodes. I think Droid episodes. I said on Twitter recently that Droid centric episodes are really a good way to explore what it means to be human. We see this, in Star Wars with the Droid episodes. We see this in like Star Trek Next Gen with data centric episodes. Because we have something that's not quite human and trying to be or emulate or aspire to be human, but in other ways that they're kind of beyond human. That droids, they're kind of immortal in that they can get blasted and then just turn back on and fix and turn back on. And so what does that mean that when you have characters that are like that and yet they want to be more human or fit human behavior patterns, or in Chopper's case really psychotic cat.
Well,
but
one thing it means for me is the chance that K2SO will be back again. So I mean,
I like this idea. Look at that. I got
Fingers crossed.
He's
there,
there on the Funko.
Yeah, the Funko Pop K2SO right here. So, oh my goodness.
That's awesome. And the other thing that a Droid episode does, in the same way that sort of helps us sort of like look at what it means to be human, it also helps us evaluate the way that we treat others. If we are looking at these droids and we're just treating them like, that tin can, then, it seems a little bit cheesy to say that, but we can really sort of like look at the way that we're interacting with other people and say, are we treating them differently just because they're one way or another? Something like that. So my final thought is that one of the things that I thought was fun is Chopper got painted up yet again in this episode. And
man, who keeps doing all these paint jobs?
I don't know. I think
they just have some decals.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
That's too much work.
And one of the things that we see in this paint job is he has the logo for the Imperial Press Corps. When the first time that logo popped up was
Was that like the little V8 looking thing?
Yes, with the circle on it. Oh man, when it first popped up, I was so jealous. So there is a website that had little clips from Alton Castle from the the HoloNet News. He would pop up, and they had little news bits that they would do, and they were posted online at a HoloNet website. And they were separate from any episodes of Rebels, and the logo was there. And when they first added that into the show, there was a select group of bloggers and podcasters that got an actual pin that they were part of the. And Justin got one. And we had been working together on the Force cast, and I was like, Justin got one, and I didn't get one. But now Justin's there.
Well, look at where Justin is now.
He's official. He's legit. So I guess that it was meant to be. So.
Well, I noticed that there was an interesting patch on Wedge's shoulder. He had the Imperial logo on one side, and he had some other type of patch. And so it's like, oh, I wonder what that's about.
I think that one is a trainer. Is
his training squadron?
I think
Sky
so.
Strikers Academy. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think that's what it was. Well, with that said, Claire, people want to stalk you. I mean, follow you online and keep up with what you have going on. Where can
See
they
how it is.
find you?
You can find me on Twitter at cstribs, just STRIBS. That's where I'm on Instagram as well. And you can probably find me lurking around the Star Wars Podcast Alliance because I like to hang out there too. So.
Excellent. Thank you, my Facebook friend. It was wonderful to meet you face to face here.
It was great. Thank you so much for having me.
You
I had
betcha.
fun.
And James, how about you? If people want to follow you and keep up with your writings on StarWars.com or your wearing Star Wars shirt fundraisers, or you told me you're also doing some stuff with the Princess Leia Gala.
Yeah, I'm on the organizing committee with that Tyler guy that we've seen in the background a bit for the Moonlight, Drowning in Moonlight Memorial Gala that's going to be at Star Wars Celebration Orlando the Thursday night. It's a fundraising black tie event for the Midnight Mission, which is one of Carrie Fisher's favorite charity organizations. So if you're coming to Orlando, come Thursday night. Tickets are still available. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a live podcast recording on stage with a lot of great podcast hosts from all across the Star Wars fan universe. We're gonna have some really cool special guests that some I can't mention yet because we're not allowed to mention them, but it's gonna be really cool. Also, if you're coming to Celebration Orlando, another thing I'm doing is the Bounty Hunt, which hopefully will get officially announced soon. It's a set of puzzle solving races that are a lot of fun. I'm one of the organizers of that, and you can follow me on Twitter at James Jawa. You can read my articles. I cover usually book-related stuff for StarWars.com, author interviews and such, as James Floyd on StarWars.com. And then, Spencer mentioned my Wear Star Wars Everyday thing. That was a project I did last year as a fundraiser. I wore a different Star Wars apparel item for every day of 2016 and even moving into 2017 to raise funds for Collateral Repair Project, which is a nonprofit organization that helps support emergency aid and education and community for urban refugees in Amman, Jordan. So thanks for letting me give a shout out to them as well. You betcha.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be a roundtable discussion without you guys being here to actually talk with me about this stuff. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here, and I'm more than happy to share all of the fun events that you guys have going on as well. And then in closing, again, I'm Spencer Brinkerhoff III. You can find me at Studios B3 and online at Spencer B3, all of that fancy stuff. Again, thank you all for being here. This was live. There he is, Panda Baba, live from Studios B3. Wonderful having you guys, and good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.